Let's welcome Justin Chon.
Thanks, Anderson. I love you, brother. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. I really love this film because I made it. Yeah, this film is about two strange siblings that grew up in K-Town, and I was born and raised in Southern California, and I been coming to K-Town ever since I was born, and it's become so gentrified, and that I don't even really recognize it anymore. But this story is about two people that grew up here, and kind of like the people that are basically locals. So I think you really don't see kind of localized stories about people from Koreatown. So I'm really proud of it. Also, I really, for this film, I really wanted to find two amazing new actors, and I think Tiffany you guys are gonna say, she blows it out of the water. She just burns up the screen, and Teddy, the best way I can describe Teddy is he's like an Asian Casey Affleck. Anyway, that's all I want to say, and I'm gonna do a Q&A. I'm gonna do a Q&A after. So yeah, you see it?
Always see it now.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna do a Q&A after, so stick around, and I'd love to answer questions. Thank you.
It's my great pleasure to introduce the award-winning actor, writer, director, Mr. Abdominal Shitnuts. Let's give him a round of applause. Mr. Justin Chon.
Let's anybody who worked on the film, let's bring them up. Everybody, come on the stage. Like half the audience.
Let's give another round of applause to the cast and crew.
Look at this beautiful crew. Look at all the shades of colors here. I love it. Okay.
Yeah, so before I open up to the audience for questions, I'm going to throw a few questions first to Justin. This is it's a beautiful film, and when you premiered Gook at Sundance and also here at the festival, you talked about your inspirations, and you mentioned Matthew Kosovitz's Lahane, right? We love that film, and it was another black and white film and whatnot. But this film is I see a lot of Wong Kar-wai, Christopher Doyle kind of imagery in this purple. So can you tell me about how did you want to, because also this is part of a kind of unofficial trilogy that you want to do, how did you come up with the idea for this film, and how did you want to make it different from Gook?
So I guess the first few films at the gate that I wanted to make them very, very personal. And I'm drawn to stories about unconventional families, and how we exist in this country, our little enclaves, and how it kind of intersects with other ethnicities, right? And so
for Gook, you know, it's a weirdly a father-son sort of a film, because there's like this filial piety aspect of having to take care of the store, even though like that burden was never asked of him. This was really, I really wanted, I have a sister, and I really wanted to explore, you know, a brother-sister relationship. I think brother-sister relationships are so peculiar because you're not of the same gender, and a lot of times you don't have a lot in common, but then you're just tied by blood. And you know, when you have a parent that's ailing or dying, and after they're gone, you know, I always wonder, like, well, what ties you together after that? Just blood? I don't know. Like, you know, if you have nothing in common, do you need to keep in touch, or how's that work? And I wanted to explore that through this film. But yeah, you know, the influences, obviously there's some Wong Kar-wai in there with the low frame rate stuff, and you know, like before, you know, Corey put out Shoplifters and shit, like I was like, man, you put that out now, everyone's gonna think I just jumped on the bandwagon or whatever. But I've always been such a huge fan, and you know, Auntie, love is man. And you know, Corey was a huge sort of influence in terms of even color palette, because he tends to use green, and the opposite side of this color spectrum is purple in his films. So like we were very inspired by that. But we just wanted to make something that didn't really lean too hard on dialogue, and was much more like immersive.
Can you talk about, I mean, again, going back to the filial piety, you know, I mean, and it's, you know, such an Asian thing, right? But you know, the fact that Tiffany's character is, you know, very much doting to the brother and whatnot, and can you talk about, you know, did you bring out your personal experiences with your sister in forming her character? Because it was kind of like, I mean, I found it very peculiar as well, but again, it's great because, you know, there's very little dialogue and some flashbacks to kind of give you that backstory. But yeah, you just talk about kind of like informing those characters from your own personal life.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my sister's a public defender, so like she's not of this world. But you know, keeping within like the world of Koreatown, you know, I just wanted to put her in a profession that was very specific to that, to the city, and you know, I really wanted to see like who, out of siblings, who's the one that's picking up the slack and who's letting out the slack, you know, and it's always the case. You know, it's really hard to find a family that like all the kids are like so on the same page. And I originally thought like, okay, maybe I make Carrie the lead because you know, I'm just like a guy, like it's just easier to write, and you know, but I thought it was a good opportunity to create a really strong, you know, female lead in Tiffany, and does such a wonderful job, and I just. You know, when I saw Tiffany for the first time, like she just had this presence and this intrinsic sort of melancholy that I really gravitated towards, and you know, I really want to explore that, you know, like from a female perspective. But it was, you know, like I was very naive, thinking like, okay, I'm a human, like I'm empathetic, thinking that I could just write, but it ended up being very, very hard. You know, I underestimated, and that's, you know, I think that's a takeaway from this film for me as a writer-director, is that I should never take anything for granted, and I really, you know, stepping aside, you know, wearing someone else's shoes is so necessary to you know,
have compassion for your fellow human, and we're talking about like another gender that's 50% of the population, probably 51%, right? But you know, it was a learning lesson for me. Let's say that, yeah. But I really am so indebted and so proud of Tiffany. She just really brought it and destroyed it.
Maybe, yeah, great. Maybe we can talk to brother and sister. How did you, actually talk to Tiffany first, and then like, how did you what did you bring to the character? Was Justin very collaborative in informing, you know, kind of the traits of the character?
So the first few times, like when I met Justin and actually, when I met Teddy was actually, is he okay? Yes. The first time that I met Teddy was the first time I also auditioned. We had done some improvs. And then actually throughout this whole process, me and Teddy spent a lot of time together. We basically spent 5 weeks, and it was pretty much 6 to 7 days a week together. And me personally, because I don't have a sibling, I'm an only child, so spending a lot of time together was really helpful just to have that chemistry. And also a lot of it was just me and Teddy working together to talk about a lot of memories, and also going around K-Town eating, because I'm also not an LA native. And so he was able to show me around, and we spent a lot of time doing that. And also me, a lot of my work that I did was also at home, a lot of visualizations, also experiencing the karaoke hostess for a night. And a lot of that was also, I was really drawn to the story because when Justin first sent me the script, you know, it's about this sibling relationship, but it's also about this immigrant family who, you know, is having a hard time struggling to make ends meet. And so it really reminded me of how my parents, they came here with nothing, and they really sacrificed everything that they did just so I could have an option to do something more. And so that's what really drew me, because I love my parents a lot.
One more question, Justin. There's so much great symbolism in the film. Can you talk about? I love the iconic imagery of the palm tree and your explanation of the palm tree. You know how it's so iconically Californian, but it seems, you know, you're explaining the movie. It's not native to California, right?
Yeah.
And you know the singular, you know, just one lone palm tree, and then at the end you see the two palm trees. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, you're so smart, Anderson.
I am.
Yeah, you know, I think when I learned that palm trees were not native to California, I was pretty surprised, and because it's such a, whenever you see anything about California, you see palm trees, and I just thought it was such a great metaphor for how we all have been, you know, transplanted here. We've set roots, but we're not. I don't know. Sometimes I ask myself, am I supposed to be here? Especially like, you know, the way we get treated, and you know, in terms of inclusion and all that stuff. I'm always like, man, like, should we have come in the first place? Do we belong here? Like, the environment's not right for us to like thrive sometimes, you know. And I don't know if you guys know or not, but like, you know, most of the palm trees in LA are dying, and their lifespan is about, you know, like 100 years or something. They're all dying, and LA County said that once they die, they're not going to replant them. So as they die, they're just going to start to disappear. You know, so I just found that really compelling, and but you know, as you saw, like at the end, the two palm trees, and regardless, they're still planted here. The brother and sister are still planted here, and like the dad can really rest assured that they'll carry on. Yeah.
Let's open up to the audience. Yeah, over there.
Yeah, Justin, I wish you hadn't said that thing about Casey Affleck in the beginning, because I couldn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Damn, I shouldn't have said that.
But can you give us a little more insight into the casting process?
Yeah. So Tiffany, we work with the casting director and look traditional, But one of my biggest goals was to put somebody on, to find somebody. So we did a Facebook, posting, and Tiffany was somebody we found through Facebook. She came in and really blew me away, and just was, I think she had a presence that nobody else really had. And it's really crazy because I was looking everywhere. I was looking New York, like Vancouver, Toronto. And by the way, here's the other thing: is Tiffany's not Korean; she's Taiwanese. Oh, and that's the thing. Is like, yeah, exactly, yeah. But that's the thing right now. Is like, who's allowed to play our parts, right? And I ask myself that all the time. I think it's the best person for the job, and you go out and I feel like there's a trend these days that it's like, okay, it's a Chinese project, so it has to only be Chinese. And I don't know, man. I think that's kind of bullshit because it's more than just just where you come from, because we're all a lot of us are born here, and we get different influences and all that stuff. And I think that she was the best person for the role. I don't give a shit if she's Taiwanese or Chinese or Mongolian. I don't care. So, that's how we found her. Teddy, a filmmaker friend of mine, Andrew Ron, he directed a film called Spa Night. I love him to death, and I called him up and asked him, hey, when you were casting your film, because I know he looked in LA, is there somebody that you thought was really talented that you couldn't cast because he wasn't right? And he sent me a bunch, he sent me a list of talent and audition tapes. Of his film, audition tapes for his film, and then Teddy, what are you? Teddy, look at his black locks. Look at his beautiful locks. Yeah, but I watched his audition tape, and I just thought he was fantastic, and I basically didn't even read him. I was just like, you got it, and I really feel like he's the Asian Casey Affleck.
Any other questions? Just shout it out. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, you. No.
Yeah. You've heard about Tiffany's process. I'm curious to hear about Teddy's process.
Teddy, your process.
What? Sorry, what was that?
What was your process?
My process?
Yeah, your process as an actor. By the way, I just want to say, man, he really dressed up for this screen time.
My process. I don't know. I think the only thing I could think of exactly was I read a lot of. I picked up this book of poetry at the house that we were renting. I think the family's still here. I don't know.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Okay. And they had this book of poetry called Abductions by Chiwon Choi. He's this Korean American poet. He was raised in Chile, but he writes a lot about his relations with his family, his girlfriend, and it was. I don't know what it was about it, but I had that book on me at all times. And I just happened to come across it at the house we were renting. But it helped me a ton. And I actually invited him here. He couldn't show, but you guys should look him up. He's really, really good. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Justin, it was a beautiful film. You did a beautiful job. Just wondering what your script process was and your writing process for the script.
Yeah, so typically, what I like to do is, I do a vomit draft and I just pump one out. just kind of from somewhere that's kind of pure, and then the real work starts. Then I have to start to structure it and stuff, and that's when Kristen, my writing partner on this film, who I love dearly, like he challenged the material, and we just went through it, and you have to structure it to make it into a film. It can't just be a stream of consciousness. But basically for this, the major beats are pretty on point. It's there, but it's about like the nuance, and in the edit, like you find things. So you saw like the intercutting that I do in the film. That was more found in the edit. When you do a drama, it's like sometimes holding the audience's attention, you struggle with that because it's people just sitting in a room a lot of times, and to keep the audience engaged, sometimes you find this stuff after you've seen it, like visually, and it's when I was in the edit, I brought Chris back in, and we were basically kind of rewriting in the edit again. And sort of what I like to do as a director is I overwrite for in the feature space. I think for television or different mediums, you don't have that luxury. But I overwrite so that the actors they can sort of sometimes speak their subtext. Then I'll go back and I'll start to cut dialogue, and it just really gets to the core of what the scene is, and some things just don't need to be said. So I think if you were to read one of my scripts in the early phases, you'd be like, this is some melodramatic like trash, But I think through each cycle of the process, from writing to the actual shooting to the editing, I'm always just trying to challenge the material and rediscover what I think the film is. But what's funny is you end up kind of close to what you originally intended, which is the kind of interesting thing about it. Yes?
How did you come up with the idea of putting the bed on the street?
So I think whenever I start writing, I always think of imagery that sort of stirs like an emotional reaction for me, personally. And I always thought that'd be just insane. I felt like, why would you do that's so dangerous, and that just shows like irresponsibility. In one frame, you really see like what this guy's about. He's very irresponsible. Like he's like not thinking very deeply, and there's a selfishness in it. So I always thought that was a visual representation of his character, very vivid, like very clearly. You understand who he is. So that's where it came from, and then and figuring out how to do it is a different thing.
Did you always intend to have the Proclaimer song in it?
Yeah. Always. I've always gotten some complaints that like my music choices are really uneven. Fuck them. Dude, that song I think is from my childhood. Like I would go to tennis camp every year, and they would play that at the
tennis camp.
Yeah, tennis camp at the end of the week. They have like a little dance, and and they would always play that song, and it just brings me a lot of joy. And I wanted to put it in the film, so I found a place for it.
I have time for one or two more questions. Yes, go ahead.
Who are the people behind you? And
Yes. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's my bad. I'm sorry. What? So I'm gonna pass the mic around. Everybody can tell you what they did on the film.
I'm a producer on the film.
Alex G, producer on the film. Hey, I'm Jake Choi. I play Johnny. Roger Swen, I'm the composer.
I play Asura, the mother.
I'm Andy Chan, the DP.
I'm Kiwa Kong for Cece. I'm G Park, I quit.
Gabriel E. Gianni.
Eunice, costume designer.
Yan Long, co-producer.
Lily, I was a co-producer and additional first AC, which is
Elijah Guest, I was the gaffer.
James Ken, I played Dad.
Sam Kim, one of many of the first ACs. Brian Lee, I was Art P.
Vincent Fausto, production assistant.
Shirley Long, VFX producer.
Carlos Barreto, property master.
Win, the second AD.
I'm also second AD.
Ronnie Edgar.
Anderson was the assistant production coordinator.
Brandon Lay, G&E, and additional first AC.
RJ Sue, Art PA.
Lana Kim, hey Tony.
I'm Tiffany Chu. I played Casey.
Eric Magad, I was a co-producer and executive producer.
Octavio Pisano, and I play Octavio.
I'm Chuck Rockford, I was doing the location sound mix.
Teddy Lee, I played Carrie.
At the bottom.
Chris Lee, second additional editor.
One last question? No?
Over here!
Okay, just shout it out.
I just want to say, I don't think Teddy or Ben Affleck is a white Teddy.
I mean, Casey Affleck. Casey Affleck.
That wasn't a question.
I have a last question then. So, talk about, this is part 2 of a trilogy. What's the, you're not an official trilogy. What's the theme? I mean, the two themes is also about family, I assume. Relationship between a parent and a child. Tell what is going to be part 3?
Yeah, so I'm in pre-production to shoot my next film in July with wonderful partners, Macro. They made Fences, Sorry to Bother You, Mudbound, and it's about a Korean American adoptee that's getting deported. Now that is happening, and what's really unfortunate is that when I started to write it was 3 years ago, and it's become more relevant now than it is then. But it's there's a lot of themes of abandonment and just who gets to stay, who's allowed to stay, and what does it mean to actually be an American? And it's going to be set in New Orleans in the South, so I also have like a parallel storyline with the Vietnamese community in New Orleans, and this Korean man, he starts to understand maybe what his culture could be through an adjacent Asian culture. So that's sort of the third part of what I'm trying to do.
Right. And you're going to start shooting this summer? Is that the plan?
Hopefully, so I'm in pre-production now, and I'm praying that we start July 1st.
So, but for this, in the meantime, for this film, it got picked up by Oscilloscope Films, a great distributor based out of New York, co-founded by the late and great Adam Yauch of the Beastie Boys. Amazing. So, when is this film coming out?
I think the tentative date right now is August 26th. It'll be in 25 major cities. So, if you guys love the film, please tell everybody you know, because I think this film lives and dies with you guys. I mean, it's going to be a grassroots sort of thing. We don't have money like a studio does to do crazy marketing or anything.
if you guys liked it, please share, tell people about it, and when it comes out at the end of August, tell your friends, go watch it and pay for tickets.
What you can do right now is actually vote for this film, ballot. Vote for your favorite films at the festival, and these awards help these independent films, and hopefully, you like the film. If you haven't grabbed the ballot, grab one on your way out, okay? Again, thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you so much.